Jimmy Carter, President of United States. November 19, 2023, 11:09 p.m. Eastern Time, AP. Rosalynn Carter, advocate for Jimmy Carter and many others, always leveraging her love of politics. November 19, 2023, 10:37 p.m. Eastern Time, AP. Rosalynn Carter, outspoken former First Lady, dies at 96. Top questions. Who is Jimmy Carter? Who is Jimmy Carter's wife? Why was Jimmy Carter awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace? What was Jimmy Carter's role in the Camp David Accords? What books has Jimmy Carter written? Summary. Read a brief summary of this topic. Jimmy Carter, Nobel Peace Prize. Jimmy Carter, Nobel Peace Prize. Jimmy Carter with the Nobel Peace Prize he was awarded in 2002. Jimmy Carter, born October 1, 1924, Plains, Georgia, U.S. 39th President of the United States, 1977–81, who served as the country's chief executive during a time of serious problems at home and abroad. His perceived inability to deal successfully with those problems led to an overwhelming defeat in his bid for re-election. However, for his work in diplomacy and advocacy, both during and after his presidency, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace in 2002. Jimmy Carter. Category: History and Society. In full, James Earl Carter, Jr. born, October 1, 1924, Plains, Georgia, U.S., age 99. Title/Office: Presidency of the United States of America, 1977–1981, United States Governor, 1971–1975, Georgia. Political affiliation: Democratic Party. Awards and honors: Grammy Award, 2006, Nobel Prize, 2002. Notable family members: spouse Rosalynn Carter, brother Billy Carter. Read Britannica's interview with Jimmy Carter. Early life and political career. Jimmy Carter's boyhood. Jimmy Carter as a boy sitting atop a Shetland pony on his family's farm near Plains, Georgia, U.S. How Rosalynn Carter redefined the role of First Lady. How Rosalynn Carter redefined the role of First Lady. Rosalynn Carter was the most active First Lady since Eleanor Roosevelt. See all videos for this article. Jimmy Carter and Rosalynn Carter. Jimmy Carter and Rosalynn Smith on their wedding day, July 7, 1946. Jimmy Carter, Navy Service. Jimmy Carter, Navy Service. Jimmy Carter, center, standing, aboard a U.S. Navy submarine. The son of Earl Carter, a peanut warehouser who had served in the Georgia state legislature, and Lillian Gordy Carter, a registered nurse who went to India as a Peace Corps volunteer at age 68, Carter attended Georgia Southwestern College and the Georgia Institute of Technology before graduating from the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis, Maryland, in 1946. After marrying Rosalynn Smith, Rosalynn Carter, who came from Carter's small hometown, Plains, Georgia, he embarked on a 7-year career in the U.S. Navy, serving submarine duty for 5 years. He was preparing to become an engineering officer for the submarine Seawolf in 1953 when his father died. Carter resigned his commission and returned to Georgia to manage the family peanut farm operations. Beginning his political career by serving on the local Board of Education, Carter won election as a Democrat to the Georgia State Senate in 1962 and was re-elected in 1964. In 1966, he failed in a bid for the governorship and, depressed by this experience, found solace in evangelical Christianity, becoming a born-again Baptist. The original copy of the Constitution of the United States, housed in the National Archives, Washington, D.C. Britannica Quiz. American History and Politics Quiz. Interactive, Jimmy Carter's life. Key events in the life of Jimmy Carter. Prior to running again for governor and winning in 1970, Carter at least tacitly adhered to a segregationist approach. However, in his inaugural address he announced that the time for racial discrimination is over and proceeded to open Georgia's government offices to blacks and to women. As governor, He reorganized the existing maze of state agencies and consolidated them into larger units while introducing stricter budgeting procedures for them. In the process, he came to national attention, finding his way onto the cover of Time magazine as a symbol of both good government and the New South. Jimmy Carter Campaign Button, 1976. Jimmy Carter Campaign Button, 1976. Button from Jimmy Carter's 1976 U.S. presidential campaign. Jimmy Carter Campaign Button, 1976. Jimmy Carter Campaign Button, 1976. Button from Jimmy Carter's 1976 U.S. presidential campaign. In 1974, just before his term as governor ended, Carter announced his candidacy for the Democratic nomination for president. Although lacking a national political base or major backing, he managed through tireless and systematic campaigning to assemble a broad constituency. In the aftermath of the Watergate scandal, which had raised widespread concern about the power of the presidency and the integrity of the executive branch, Carter styled himself as an outsider to Washington, D.C., a man of strong principles who could restore the faith of the American people in their leaders. Ironically, Carter's moral stance and candor caused a small stir when, during the campaign, he admitted in an interview with Playboy magazine that he had committed adultery in his heart many times. American presidential election, 1976. Results of the American presidential election, 1976. Source: Office of the Clerk of the U.S. House of Representatives. Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford. Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford. Jimmy Carter, left, and U.S. President Gerald Ford in the first of three televised debates during the 1976 presidential campaign. Winning the Democratic nomination in July 1976, Carter chose the liberal Senator Walter F. Mondale of Minnesota as his running mate. Carter's opponent was the unelected incumbent Republican President, Gerald R. Ford, who had come into office in 1974 when Richard Nixon resigned in the wake of Watergate. Many believed that the close race tipped in Carter's favor after Ford stumbled in a televised debate by saying that Eastern Europe was not dominated by the Soviet Union. In November 1976, the Carter-Mondale ticket won the election, capturing 51% of the popular vote and garnering 297 electoral votes to Ford's 240. See 5 things you don't know about Jimmy Carter. Presidency of Jimmy Carter. Witness the inaugural address of President Jimmy Carter at Washington, D.C., January 20, 1977. Witness the inaugural address of President Jimmy Carter at Washington, D.C., January 20, 1977. U.S. President Jimmy Carter delivering his inaugural address, Washington, D.C., January 20, 1977. See all videos for this article. Jimmy Carter, Rosalynn Carter, and Amy Carter. Jimmy Carter, Rosalynn Carter, and Amy Carter. President-elect Jimmy Carter with his wife, Rosalynn Carter, and their daughter, Amy Carter, on Inauguration Day, January 20, 1977. Rosalynn Carter, Jimmy Carter, and Amy Carter. Rosalynn Carter, Jimmy Carter, and Amy Carter. Jimmy Carter with his wife, Rosalynn, left, and daughter, Amy, at the White House, Washington, D.C. Beginning with his inaugural walk with Rosalynn down Pennsylvania Avenue, Carter tried to reinforce his image as a man of the people. In his inaugural address, Carter also reflected this approach, saying, "You have given me a great responsibility, to stay close to you, to be worthy of you, and to exemplify what you are. Let us create together a new national spirit of unity and trust. Your strength can compensate for my weakness, and your wisdom can help to minimize my mistakes." He adopted an informal style of dress and speech in public appearances, held frequent press conferences, and reduced the pomp of the presidency. Early on in his administration, Carter introduced a dizzying array of ambitious programs for social, administrative, and economic reform. Most of those programs, however, met with opposition in Congress despite the Democratic majorities in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. On one hand, Congress, in the post-Watergate environment, was more willing to challenge the executive branch. On the other, Carter the populist was quick to criticize Congress.